I need to stop you before you reach for that glass of plain water. Not because water is bad, water is essential, but because after 60, plain water alone is leaving one of the most powerful natural testosterone boosting opportunities of your entire day sitting completely untapped. And once I show you what to add to it and why, you are never going to think about your morning glass the same way again. Here is the belief most men over 60 are carrying right now: that low testosterone, low energy, reduced drive, and the slow dimming of vitality are simply what aging looks like. That the numbers on the lab report are a verdict rather than a starting point. That the man they used to be, sharp, strong, sexually confident, physically alive, is a version of themselves that has quietly retired. I meet these men every week in my clinic, and almost every single time, what I find underneath that resignation is not irreversible biology. What I find is a body that has been given the wrong inputs for years and is still waiting to respond to the right ones. My name is Dr. Mariana. I am a board-certified urologist and men's health specialist with over 16 years of clinical experience working with men between 50 and 80. Hormonal health, prostate function, vascular vitality, intimate performance, these are not separate concerns. They are one interconnected system. And that system is far more responsive to natural intervention than most men are ever told. This channel exists to change that. If you are new here, hit subscribe and tap the like button right now. And drop a comment letting me know where in the world you are watching from. This community spans continents, and I genuinely want to hear from you. Now, let's talk about the root, and why what you drink every morning may be one of the most underused tools for hormonal recovery you have ever had access to. First, you need to understand what is actually happening to testosterone after 60, because most men only know that it drops. They don't know why, and they don't know which part of the drop is inevitable versus which part is driven entirely by correctable lifestyle factors. Here is the biology in plain terms. Testosterone is produced primarily in the Leydig cells of the testes, regulated by a communication loop between the brain and the hormonal system called the HPG axis, the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. Think of this loop like a thermostat system in a large building. The brain senses how much testosterone is circulating, signals the testes to produce more or less, and the testes respond. After 60, two things go wrong with this system simultaneously. First, the testes themselves become less responsive, like an old furnace that takes longer to fire up and doesn't reach full heat anymore. Second, and this is the part almost nobody talks about, a protein called sex hormone binding globulin, SHBG, increases dramatically with age. SHBG binds to testosterone in the bloodstream and renders it biologically inactive. It is like having money locked in a safe you cannot open. Your total testosterone numbers might look acceptable on a lab report, but your free testosterone, the testosterone your body can actually use, is being quietly strangled by SHBG. Addressing SHBG is one of the most overlooked strategies in men's hormonal health, and certain natural compounds do exactly that. The root I am talking about is ginger, not ginger ale, not ginger-flavored supplements with a fraction of the active compound. Raw ginger root, the kind you can buy at any grocery store for almost nothing, contains a dense concentration of bioactive compounds, including gingerols, shogaols, and paradols, that have been studied extensively for their effects on male hormonal health. In 2012, a clinical study published in a peer-reviewed journal followed infertile men given daily ginger supplementation for 3 months. Testosterone levels increased by an average of 17%. Luteinizing hormone, the signal the brain sends to tell the testes to produce testosterone, increased by nearly 43%. These are not trivial numbers. These are the kinds of numbers men pay significant money to achieve through pharmaceutical intervention. And they came from a root that costs less than a cup of coffee. But the mechanism goes even deeper than hormone stimulation. Ginger is one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds ever studied. And this matters enormously for testosterone because chronic low-grade inflammation, which is nearly universal in men over 60, directly suppresses the Leydig cells responsible for testosterone production. Think of inflammation as a factory fire. When the factory is on fire, production stops. The workers are focused on survival, not output. Chronic inflammation sends a constant low-level alarm signal through the body that effectively tells the hormonal system, this is not a safe time to invest in reproduction and vitality. Shut it down. Ginger aggressively suppresses the inflammatory pathways, particularly COX-2 and prostaglandin production, that send those suppression signals. When the fire is put out, the factory gets back to work. I want to pause here and ask you directly. How many of you have noticed a connection between stress, poor sleep, or illness, all high inflammation states, and a drop in your energy and drive? Comment below and tell me, because what you have been observing intuitively has a precise biological explanation, and ginger is one of the most direct natural tools for addressing it. Now, and this is critical, how you prepare it determines everything. This is where most men go wrong even when they have the right information. The active compounds in ginger, particularly the gingerols, are significantly more bioavailable when the root is freshly grated rather than dried or powdered. Heat degrades a portion of the gingerols but simultaneously converts them into shogaols, a different but equally potent compound, which is why a light warm preparation is actually beneficial. The sweet spot is warm water, not boiling. Water between 60 and 70 degrees Celsius preserves the maximum concentration of both gingerols and shogaols. Think of it like brewing a precise tea. The temperature is not arbitrary. It is the difference between extracting the full power of the root and extracting a pale shadow of it. The preparation is straightforward. Take a thumb-sized piece of fresh ginger root, approximately 10 to 15 grams. Peel it and grate it finely rather than slicing it. Grating ruptures far more of the cellular structure and releases significantly more active compound than slicing does. Place the grated ginger in a cup and pour warm water, not boiling, over it. Allow it to steep for 8 to 10 minutes. Then add one key ingredient before you drink it, a quarter teaspoon of high-quality turmeric powder. Turmeric contains curcumin, a compound that works synergistically with ginger's gingerols to amplify the anti-inflammatory effect by a factor that neither compound achieves alone. They work together the way a key and a lock work. Each is incomplete without the other. Add a pinch of black pepper to the mixture. This is not optional. Black pepper contains piperine, which increases curcumin's bioavailability by up to 2,000%. Without it, your body absorbs only a fraction of the turmeric you just added. And finally, a half teaspoon of raw honey, which adds mild prebiotic support for the gut microbiome, directly connected to hormonal production through what researchers now call the gut endocrine axis. Drink this every morning on an empty stomach, before any food and before coffee. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone and testosterone's direct biological antagonist, peaks in the first hour after waking. Consuming ginger in a fasted state during this window provides maximum absorption and delivers the anti-inflammatory and hormonal signaling compounds precisely when your body's hormonal regulation is most active and most receptive. Think of it like tuning a radio first thing in the morning before the interference of the day begins. You get the clearest signal when everything else is quiet. The fifth layer of this protocol, and the one that multiplies everything else, is consistency across a minimum of 21 days. The compounds in ginger do not produce a single dramatic spike. They work by gradually recalibrating the inflammatory environment and hormonal signaling pathways over time. Think of it less like flipping a light switch and more like slowly turning up a dimmer. Each morning compounds on the last. Most men who commit to this consistently report the first noticeable shifts: improved morning energy, clearer thinking, improved mood stability, and enhanced morning confidence within the third week. By 6 weeks, the changes tend to be significant enough that people around them notice before they say anything. Let me tell you about David. He was 64 when he first came to see me. A former contractor, physically active most of his life, never one for doctors, the kind of man who waited until something was genuinely wrong to seek help. He came in because his wife was worried. He had become quieter, slower, less present. His total testosterone was on the lower edge of the normal range, but his free testosterone, the biologically active portion, was significantly suppressed. His inflammatory markers were elevated. He had not connected any of this to anything he could control. I figured it was just the mileage, he told me. We built a protocol together. The ginger preparation was the anchor of his morning routine. 3 months later, he sat across from me and said something I have never forgotten. I feel like the lights came back on. His free testosterone had improved measurably. His inflammatory markers had dropped. His energy had returned. His wife had noticed first. She said I seemed like myself again, he told me. That is the goal, not a number on a lab report. A man who feels like himself again. I want to speak to the man watching this who has quietly decided it is probably too late, that too many years have passed, too much has changed, and whatever window existed for this kind of recovery has already closed. I have heard this in my exam room more times than I can count, And I want to say this as clearly as I know how to say it. The male endocrine system retains meaningful capacity for natural hormonal improvement well into the 70s and beyond. The body is not sentimental. It does not care how long you waited. It responds to what you give it now. Dignity is not a privilege of the young. It is available to any man willing to give his body what it is asking for. You have not missed your window. You are simply standing at the beginning of a different one. Here is your action summary. Buy fresh ginger root today. It costs almost nothing. Grate a thumb-sized piece each morning rather than slicing it. Steep it in warm water, not boiling, for 8 to 10 minutes. Add a quarter teaspoon of turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, and half a teaspoon of raw honey. Drink it every morning on an empty stomach before coffee or food. Commit to 21 consecutive days without skipping. Track your energy, your mood, your morning confidence, and your mental sharpness at the end of each week. That is your 30-day challenge. Simple, inexpensive, consistent. If this video gave you something real, a reason to try, a piece of biology that finally made sense of something you have been experiencing, please hit the like button and share this with a man over 50 who deserves to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss what comes next. And for your comment tonight, I want something specific from you. Tell me what the first change you notice is going to be, and come back and tell me if you were right. I read these comments. Your story matters. To me and to every man in this community who is watching and still deciding whether to try. Aging is not the end of vitality. It is an invitation to live smarter.